I'm sure you guys know a lot of rabbis. But there was a rabbi, and every Shabbos morning, Saturday morning, he would get up to speak, and he would talk for exactly 6 minutes and 25 seconds. And this went on week after week after week. Finally, one congregant gathered enough arrogance and enough strength, and he goes to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, I have to ask you a very important question. He says, yes. What's the question, my dear child? Well, Rabbi, how is it every single week you speak exactly 6 minutes and 25 seconds? How do you do it? He says, very, very simple. You see, Saturday morning I get up and I have a coffee and I have a banana and I learn a little bit. I prepare my speech and then I walk from my house to the synagogue. And from my house to the synagogue, it takes exactly 6 minutes and 25 seconds. And over those 6 minutes and 25 seconds, I'm able to develop my talk. And that is why I get up every week and I talk exactly 6 minutes and 25 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, my trip from New York to Florida was 4.5 hours. We'll keep it down to 3 hours. Okay. On your paper, on your table, there's a paper. And there are two sides to the paper. There is a Aleph-based chart. Okay, an Aleph-based chart on side A. Let me begin with the following teaching in the Talmud. The Talmud says like this. There was a potential convert, which means a person that wanted to convert to Judaism. And he went to the local rabbi. The local rabbi, his name was Shamai. And he said, Shamai, I want to convert to Judaism. However, I have my conditions. And that is, I only believe in one Torah. I only believe in the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the 24 books of the prophets. I do not believe in rabbinic law. I don't believe in the second Torah. I don't believe in the oral law, the Talmud and the Code of Jewish Law. I don't believe in that, but I still want to convert to Judaism. Shammai was known to be a very strict rabbi. He was a no-nonsense rabbi. And when he had this person who came in and asked such a delirious question, he took a rod stick and he chased him out of the house. So, what do we do in America when the first rabbi is no good? You walk down the block and you find another rabbi, right? So, he came down the block to Chabad, he found a nice rabbi, and he knocks on the door. He says to this rabbi, Hillel, I would like to convert to Judaism. However, I don't believe in the second Torah. I only believe in one Torah. Are you willing to convert me? Hillel was a very gentle soul, a very kind person. And he said, sure, I'm happy to do it. No problem. Tell me, do you know to read the Aleph base? Do you know how to read Hebrew? He says, no. He said, well, before you learn the Torah, we have to know how to read Hebrew. Okay? So he takes out a chart like this. And he says, okay, this is an Aleph. Repeat after me. Aleph. Aleph. Okay, repeat after me. Aleph. Beis. Vez. Gimel. Perfect. Okay. So he does this with the fellow. He goes through the whole Aleph base from Aleph to Tuf. He says, now go home and practice this tonight and come back tomorrow morning. He goes home. He practices the entire night. And the next morning he sits down at the table and Hillel says, what is this? He says, there's an Aleph. He says, no, it's not. It's a Tuf. You sure, Hillel? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, next one. What is this? A Beis. No, it's a Shin. Now he's getting a bit nervous. He says, okay, and what is this one? Gimel. Hillel says, that's not a Gimel, that's a Resh. The man turns around to Hillel and says, Hillel, you're playing with me. What's going on? I know for a fact. You told me Aleph, Beis, Gimel. Now you're changing it around Tuf, Shin, Resh. He says, yes, I'm trying to make a point. How do you know an Aleph is an Aleph? How do you know a Beis is a Beis? How do you know a Gimel is a Gimel? The only way you know it is because your father taught you that the Aleph is the Aleph. And your mother taught you the Beis is a Beis. It goes back all the way to Moses. It goes all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In other words, if you don't believe in an oral Torah, a Torah that is passed on from sage to sage, from father to son, from mother to daughter, from generation to generation, then there's no way for you to read the written Torah. So therefore, we have to start with the Aleph Beis. This is the foundation of everything. And the Aleph Beis is not only a lesson of how to read Scripture, but the Aleph Beis are the keys to the oral law and all the secrets of Kabbalah. In Kabbalah, we are told that when God created the world, He created the world with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. This is the DNA of every single creature and creation in the entire world. And every moment, God continues to recreate the world ex nihilo, nothing into something. If God would stop for one moment breathing life and vitality into the world would return to nothingness. So every moment, God is recreating the world. Each letter has tremendous power. Each letter has tremendous vitality. And so we begin to learn the letters of the Aleph Beis. We start with the Aleph. There's a famous story. The first Chabad Rebbe, it's brought down in Hayom Yom, wanted to teach his child the Aleph Beis. And he called in one of his disciples and he said to him like this, melodically in Yiddish. He said, "You have a mitzvah and I have a mitzvah. Your mitzvah is to support your family. My mitzvah is to teach my child. We will swap mitzvahs. You see, I'm going to hire you to teach my child Torah. I want you to begin with the Aleph Beis and teach him the letters, the meaning of the letters." And he said, "Vos is an Aleph. What is an Aleph? The letter Aleph is a dot on the top and a dot on the bottom and a line in between. That's an Aleph. The dot on the top represents God. Why is it God? Because God is indivisible. And furthermore, how much we understand, how much knowledge we have, how much science has discovered is nothing compared to God's infinity. You see, you look out into the sky, you have the biggest telescopes, you can see 16.5 thousand light years away, and yet this is all part of God's finitude. It's part of finity, not part of infinity. God is infinite, and therefore to understand God is almost impossible. All we know is that little dot. That's all we understand about God's reality. And then the dot on the bottom is the letter Yud. A Yud is a Yid, a Jew. What connects a Jew to God? The Vav, the line in between. The line in between is the Torah. When we study Torah every day, that is the way we connect with Almighty God. Now, as the rabbis mentioned earlier, tonight we are celebrating the 10th day of Shvat, the passing of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Shneerson, who passed away in 1950. And a year later, on the 11th day of Shvat, in 1951, the Rebbe assumed the mantle of leadership. Now, before the previous Rebbe passed away, he gave out a discourse to be studied on the day of the 10th of Shvat, unbeknownst to the Chassidim that he was going to pass away on that day. That became the last will and testament. And in that Maimer, he talks about the letters. And the Rebbe each year, our Rebbe, would discuss that Maimer and expound on it. Now this year, which means the chapter for this year that we learn of that Maimer, he talks about the letter Aleph. And he says like this. He says that in the very first verse of the Torah, it says, Bereshis, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And the word es, which means the, is an Aleph and a Taf. The Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Taf is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Generally, the word es or et means the. But Kabbalistically, The Aleph and Taf means really the first letter of the alphabet, Taf, the final letter of the alphabet, which are the 22 letters of the alphabet. In other words, how did God create the world in the beginning? Through these 22 letters. Furthermore, the letter Aleph alludes to God. Alufay shal olam, the meaning of Aleph. Okay? Aleph, Bet, Alpha, Beta, A, B, C's, they all come from the Aleph base. It was the original language of the world. It was the language in which God created the universe. So, the first letter is Aleph. Now, with the Aleph, which is God, God created the first human being. What was the name of the first human being? His name was Adam. Why is he called Adam? Because Adam el-Elyon, he is made in the image of God. Now, listen to this. You have your chart. You have an Aleph, which is the first letter of the chart. If you continue to move down the chart to the left, you have a Dalit. Dalit, that's the second letter of Adam. And then in the middle over here, you have a Mem. Okay, it says final Mem. Aleph, Dalit, Mem. I'm teaching you Hebrew tonight. Spells out Adam. Now here comes the Kabbalah. Says the Baal Shem Tov that Dalit is Dibur, which is speech. Mem stands for machshava, thought. If a person has only thought and speech, he is a Homo sapien. He is a wise human being, but he is not Adam. He is not a mensch. He is not a complete person. To be complete, you need to bring the Aleph into Adam. You need to bring God into your life. If you don't have God in your life, you only have Dalit Mem. That's dumb. I wasn't sure how that would go over. Okay. If you have Dalit Mem in your life, it's only Dam. But if you bring Aleph, which is God's name, into your life, then you have a complete, healthy human being. My dear friends, we are living in a generation when every single day we are praying for the coming of Mashiach. And I know that many of us are scared. We're afraid of changes. We want Mashiach to come on one hand. On the other hand, we have a beautiful house in Daytona. And what are you going to do? Do I go to Gaza or do I stay in Daytona? It's a question. It's a challenge. And every day we say Mashiach is coming. So there's a very beautiful Kabbalistic thought. And it goes like this. That the difference between Gola and Geula is the letter Aleph. If you take the letter Aleph, the first letter of creation, and you put it into the word Gola, Gola means exile. Geula means redemption. All you need to change from Gola to Geula is to put the Aleph into the word. The Aleph is God. If you bring God into your life, then you can change every exile. You can change every trauma. You can change every challenge into Geula, into redemption. We read in this week's Torah portion that after the splitting of the Red Sea, it says Moses sang a song. Az Yashir Moshe. The word Az starts with the letter Aleph. Moses sang a song, but the truth is, Az means he will sing. Now, it makes no sense. He sang over 3,300 years ago. So why does the Torah say Moses will sing in the future? And in truth, grammatically, whenever you take the letter Aleph and you put it before a word, it represents the future. So, what does it mean, Az Yashir Moshe? Moses will sing. Says Rashi, the classic commentator, the logician of the Torah. He says to teach us that in the future there will be the resurrection of the dead. From here we derive the lesson that the Torah hints to the resurrection of the dead. And then Az Yashir Moshe. And then Moses will sing again. There's a very moving story of the great tzaddik, Rabbi Aaron of Belz, who went through the Nazi war camps. And after the war, he survived and he came to Israel. He came to Israel, it was around Passover time, and people were broken. They were devastated. And here he comes from the ashes of Auschwitz, from the ashes of the Holocaust. He now finally immigrates to the Holy Land of Israel, and people there are crushed. And now we have the holiday of Passover. And we're about to have the Seder, and for 7 days we have to eat matzah. And he sees that the people don't want to participate. They don't want to get together. They don't want to have a Seder. They just don't want to do anything. They're broken. And the rabbi calls everybody together and he says, I never understood the meaning of this verse in the Torah. It says Moses sang at the splitting of the Red Sea. From here we derive the resurrection of the dead. What's the connection between these two stories? They're totally unrelated. And he said like this. He said, Moses took the Jews out of Egypt, but we know that 4/5 of the Jewish people died in the plague of darkness. 4/5 of the Jewish nation did not make it out of Egypt. 80% were buried a few days before the Passover Seder. So can you imagine? Every family had members that died. And now we are told you have to leave Egypt, take your bags, go into a desert, and all of a sudden, 7 days later, the sea splits, and now Moses wants to sing. Do you think any of them wanted to sing? After their father, brother, sister, children were dying, just last week they got up from Shiva. Who wants to sing? So Moses says, hold on, guys. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Uz Yashir Moshe, they're coming back. Those 80% that died, they're going to be reunited with us very, very soon. And so says Rabbi Aaron of Belz, from here we derive the resurrection of the dead. Uz Yashir Moshe. From the very first letter, we have the lessons of creation. We have the lessons of God. We have the lessons how to transform our daily life. We have the lessons how to look into the future. And so I want to end with one final story. Before my final story, before the final story. This is a very true story, by the way. And it goes like this. In my community in Brooklyn Heights, I live in downtown Brooklyn. And by the way, if you're ever traveling to New York, for a bagel or a pizza, you're welcome to come into my Chabad house. I'll give you a coffee. I'll give you a dinner. Not as nice as this one, but we'll try to do something for you. So, this is about 33 years ago this happened, because actually today was my 35th wedding anniversary, Baruch Hashem, in English. My Hebrew one is going to be Sunday, the 11th of Shvat. So it's between now and then, I get two presents, you understand? For the English one and the Hebrew one. So, my wife is about to give birth to our second son. And we live a block and a half away from the hospital. So I call one of my congregants, his name is Mitch. And by the way, he's still with us in the synagogue after all these years, even though I called him to babysit for me. I say, Mitch, my son Yankel, he's sleeping. He's only not even 1 year old. And my wife's about to give birth. Do you mind coming over, take your Chayenu with you, learn your Rambam, whatever you want to do, sit in my house. My kid's not getting up. He goes to sleep for the night, Baruch Hashem. He sleeps the whole night. I need to take my wife down the block to the hospital. He says, Rabbi, for you, anything. No problem. So 5 minutes later, Mitch comes to my house. He's sitting there. Yankel's sleeping. And I walk with my wife down the block to the hospital. It's a Thursday night. And we go into the hospital, and they hook her up to the machines, and, the heart's going up and down over there, everything's beautiful, and my wife says, okay, I'm going home. I say, what do you mean? Yeah, it's not going to happen tonight, I'm not ready, we're going home. Okay, honey, whatever you say, we're going home. So we get up from the hospital, we come back home. I say, Mitch, go home. Thank you very much. That was Thursday night. The next night, Friday night, after shul, we have a full table, 20, 30 people. 12 o'clock, everybody goes home. We're cleaning up the table. I'm doing the dishes, sometimes, maybe. And my wife says, okay, now it's happening. I say, now? She says, yeah. I said, maybe push off till after Shabbos? No, now. I said, come on, honey. You could hold it in another few hours. Now, I'm going now. Okay, what do I do? All right, I got to get Mitch. I said, honey, you stay here. I'm going to run around the corner. I'll get Mitch to babysit for Yankel, and then we're going to walk very nicely to the hospital. Okay, no problem. So it's about 12 o'clock at night. This time of year in New York, it's not like Daytona. It's like 0 degrees, snowing on the ground, and it's freezing. And it's 12 o'clock at night, Friday night, the streets are quiet. And I walk down the street, it's called Skirmahorn. I'm not sure where that came from. And I put my hands together, and I scream out to the second floor of the brownstone, because in Brooklyn Heights we have brownstones. I say, Mitch, get up. His wife gets up, says, Rabbi, what do you want? It's 12 o'clock in the morning. I said, Beth, you got to wake up Mitch. Mitch, the rabbi is here. It's Friday night, right? Buzz him in. He says, Mitch, it's Shabbos. I can't buzz him in. Oh, you're right. Don't buzz him in. Okay, he washes Negavasa. He gets up. He opens the Rabbi, what's the problem? I say, Mitch, it's the real thing. He says, what? Mashiach is here. This is a real story. You see, that's the meaning. We have to believe Mashiach is coming now. And if the rabbi wakes you up 3 o'clock in the morning and here's the real thing, what are you going to say? Are you going to say Mashiach is here? If yes, then you're living with Mashiach. If not, you got to go back to the mikveh and you got to go all over again, start all over again from Aleph base, because we're not doing something right. This is the emotion. This is the urgency. This is the mood. How every Jew needs to live today, that any moment now Mashiach is coming. And when you say it's the real thing, it's only one thing. And that one thing, of course, is Mashiach, who we are all waiting for. Amen. Go on. All right, so this guy, he goes to his doctor. He says, Doc, I think my wife is going hard of hearing. He says, really? That's a very serious accusation. I want you to go home and check out the severity of the matter. So he comes home. He stands 30 feet behind his wife. He cups his hands together. He says, honey, what's for dinner? No response. He moves up another 10 feet. Again, he cups his hands together. Honey, what's for dinner? Again, no response. He's now standing at point blank range, right behind his wife. He says, honey, what's for dinner? And she says, for the third time, chicken. Okay, so this is the story. The story is every moment God is sending us messages. Every moment He's sending us messages, and we have to open our eyes and see what these messages are, and open our ears and listen what the cosmos and the universe are truly telling us. From the Aleph, we go to the Beis. You see the letter Beis? The letter Beis is the second letter over here on the page. It's also right here on the back. Beis is the first letter in the Torah. The Torah begins with the letter Beis. Why? I'm going to ask a question over here. When we pull up Sunday morning, and throughout the entire week, people would buy tickets for the lottery. And so, right before Shabbos, they would pull the winning number, and they would announce the winner. So everybody in the town bought a ticket. Everybody besides one person, shlemazel. We all know what a shlemazel is. Someone who has 2 left hands, 2 left feet, can't do anything right. And shlemazel did not buy a ticket. They said to him, why don't you buy a ticket? He says, well, I'm a shlemazel, I have no mazel, I have no luck. They said, look, we're going to put money together, we're going to buy you a ticket. All you have to do is choose a number. So he thinks about a number, and he writes down the number that he chooses. And they take that ticket, and they tear it in half. They put half into the hat, and half he keeps. And Friday afternoon, right before Shabbos, right before the candle lighting ceremony, they draw the winning number. They ask Rabbi Pinney to please pick the winning number. And Rabbi Azagri picks it out of the hat. And who do you think wins? Shlemazel, exactly. They say, Shlemazel, how'd you do it? How'd you win the lottery? He says, very, very simple. To win a lottery, you have to have 2 things. Number 1, you have to have seichel, you have to have brains. Aha, and you have that, I have a lot of brains. And number 2, you have to have mazel, you have to have luck. Okay? So what's the seichel? You say, I use my brains. I said, look, the number 7 is a very special number. My mother told me that the number 7 is very special because Shabbos is the 7th day of the week. And the Rebbe told us that this generation is the most beautiful generation because it's the 7th generation of the Alter Rebbe. And Moses was the 7th generation from Abraham. So the number 7, says the Medrash, is called loved. So I use my seichel, you see? I said if 7 is a good number, then 7 times 7 is even better. So I wrote down number 48. They said, Shlemazel, 7 times 7 is 49. He says, yeah, that's where the mazel comes in. I was never good at mathematics. So, my dear friends, we're here tonight to celebrate a Farbrengen of the 7th generation from the Alter Rebbe, that the Rebbe has told us is a generation that is loved by God. And therefore you have to look around and realize that each one of you are chosen. Each one of you are chosen to be in this generation, a beloved generation. And every day when you get up and you say the Modani and you thank God for returning your soul, you need to realize that God believes in you. God trusts in you and that you matter. The fact that you are vertical and you are able to go out into the world means that you can make a difference. And that is really what a Farbrengen is all about. The Farbrengen means we get together and we inspire one the other. The Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, said what a Farbrengen can accomplish. When Jews get together to inspire one the other, what this can accomplish, even the angel Michael cannot accomplish. And the Rebbe once asked at a Farbrengen, why do we have to mix in the angel Michael? Now, we're going to talk about Kabbalah later, about the angels perhaps, but why this specific angel? Why do we bring him into the entire equation? And the Rebbe said like this, that the gematria, okay, we're getting to numerology now. The numerology of the word Michael, Michael, equals 101, 101. And we all know that 100 is a good mark. 100 is perfection. 101 is infinity, is beyond perfection. A Farbrengen is so powerful. When Jews get together and we wish each other l'chaim, it's so powerful, it's more than perfection, it's more than infinity. It's more than angel Michael. And that is why I like to begin each Farbrengen with raising our glasses and wishing one the other across the table l'chaim. May God bless you with healthy children, nachas from your children, long years, healthy years, livelihood, parnasa b'achava, and may God fulfill all the desires of your heart for good. L'chaim.